In this video, we're going to go over what's become the most important tool in the developer and operation roles, and that tool is Git. Git is used as source management for your code, and since everything has become code now, including your core infrastructure like servers and networks, it's now more important than ever for everyone in the IT field to know and understand how to use Git. So the best way to learn Git is to see it in use and follow along and sort of do a lab together. So let's go ahead and get started with Git right now. I'm going to cover everything that you need to know to get started, but if you're only interested in a certain concept, then feel free to use the timestamps below and find the section that's applicable to you. So the first thing we need to do is download the Git client. I'm on Windows, so I'm just going to go to Google and Google download Git. The first entry is going to be Git SCM. I'm going to head to their website, choose Windows, download, and go through the installation. If you're on Mac OS, you can do it the same way. And if you're on Linux, then I suggest doing sudo apt install git-all, and that will install the Git client on a Linux machine. Alright, so to get started with Git, we're going to hop into a terminal, and then we're going to create a new directory for our project. So I'm going to make a new directory here, and I'm just going to call it Hello World. And then I'm going to hop into this directory, and our first Git command that we're going to use is git init. And basically, all this does is initiate a Git repository. You can see that it created the file within our Hello World directory, and it created a hidden directory named .git. So if I pull this up in Windows Explorer here, you can see that the directory is empty, but if I do a .git, we can go in there and see the actual Git database. Now, we're not going to go into what each of these files do right now because this is just a beginner lesson, but just be aware that this is where the Git database exists, and this is where all the information is stored locally. So I'm going to hop back into the terminal here, and now I'm going to make a new file. So to make a new file, I'm just going to use the touch command, and I'm going to call it helloworld.py, and this is going to be a Python script. And if you're following along, you don't need to make a Python script. You can do a text document or any type of file. We're just testing source control here. So make whatever you want, but I'm going to go into our script, and I'm going to go print hello world, and I'll save it and close. And if I cat that out, you can see hello world. And if we do a directory listing, you can see that there's a single file within our hello world project. So the next thing we need to do with Git is add this file so it's tracked by Git. So that's very simple to do. All we need to do is use the git add command. So I'm going to say git add, and then I'm going to paste in this file name, and that adds it to what we call the staging area. So here's a graphic to help you understand the different states that a file can be in. We have untracked, unmodified, modified, and staged. Untracked is the simplest one to understand. Basically, this is a file within our working directory that Git is not tracking. So just because a file exists within the directory, it doesn't mean Git is tracking it. That does not happen until you use the git add command. As soon as you use the git add command, Git starts tracking the file. And when we ran it for the first time, it put it into the staging area. All files in the staging area get sent to the Git repository after you do a commit. This is going to make a lot more sense as we go through this tutorial, so let's go ahead and move on, and I'll bring this graphic back up as we progress through the video. Now, if we want to see what the current status is of our Git repository, we can type the command git status. And here you can see some information in regards to our Git repository. First thing we see up here is it's on the master branch. We'll get into branches later, but basically the master branch is the primary branch. Branches are mostly used when you're collaborating with other people or you're working on a new feature and you don't want to mess with the master branch. You just sort of want to branch the code off, do a little testing, and then when your change is ready, you merge that to the master branch. The next thing is there's no commits yet. So basically what a commit is it takes all the staged changes and then commits it to the repository. So we haven't made a commit yet, so it says no commits yet. And then at the bottom here, we can see a new file, helloworld.py. So a new file was added to the staging area, but it has not been committed yet. Let's go ahead and make our first commit. So to make our first commit, we're going to go git commit, and then we're going to put in the -m parameter, and this is the memo, and it's required for all commits. And basically, you just say something about the commit. So I'm going to say initial commit. And you can see that it committed, and that one file changed, and the file was inserted. So if we do the git status again, we can see it's on the master branch, but nothing to commit. Now, one thing you might be wondering is when you're doing that get status command, you're not seeing the hello world.py file in there anymore. And that's because it doesn't have any new changes right now. So if you actually want to see which files are currently being tracked by Git, you can use the get ls-tree command. So I'm going to run that right now. I'm going to go get ls-tree, and I'm going to go -r master. And you can see here that we have the hello world.py file, and this is the hash of the file. So that's a really important command, and I've noticed in a lot of tutorials the trainer leaves this command out, but it's one that I use all the time to see the currently committed files. So now that we've committed our first change and our first file, let's go ahead and add a second file and make some changes to our initial file, and then see how that looks. So let's get started by going touch readme.md. And then I'm going to open it up in Notepad. And then I'm just going to say, this is my README file. And I'll save it and close it out. Now when I do an ls, I can see this directory has 2 files. And if I do a get status, it's detected that a new file was added, which is the readme.md. So basically what this means is the file was added to the directory project. Git sees that it's there, but Git is not tracking this file in the Git database. So if we want to start tracking this file, we need to run the get add command again. But before we do that, let's go ahead and make a few changes to our hello world.py. So I'll go in here, and I'm going to say, instead of hello world, I'm going to say hello Brad. And then I'm going to close that out, and then I'm going to run the get status command again. And you can see that the readme file is untracked, but we also see there's a modified file, hello world.py. So Git has noticed 2 things. It's noticed that we've made changes to the hello world file, and it's noticed that we've created a new file. So the next step that we need to do is we need to add these files to the staging area again. And we do that with the get add command. But instead of putting each file name individually, I'm just going to go asterisk here, and then hit enter. And that should add them both. So now when I go get status, you can see that both the changes are being tracked now. So now that we've staged both the files, the next thing we want to do is commit the changes. So I'm going to go get commit -m, and I'll say added readme. Hit enter, and you can see that 2 files were changed, 2 things inserted, and it deleted the old file. So basically it deleted the old hello world.py file it was tracking, it added the new one, and then it added the new readme, is basically what that means. If we rerun our get ls command, you can see these are the 2 files being tracked, and one thing you may notice is this hash has completely changed from the old hash, so we know it's a different file. So we know that that hello world and the new one are different because the MD5 hash is different. Another really important command that a lot of other tutorials skip over that I think should never be left out is the get log command. So let's run that here, and I'm going to go get log, and then I'm going to say 1 line, just to simplify the output here. And this shows us exactly what's happened with our Git repository. And it actually reads bottom up, so we can see the initial commit. This is a summary of the hash. And then after that, we made a change on the master branch to add the readme file. This is a really good command for troubleshooting any issues that you have with your Git repositories. And we'll get more into details on how you can use the get log command to filter output and everything like that. But just using this one command gives you a really good summary with what's happened with the Git repository so far. So add that to your little cheat sheet that I'm sure you're all making, and just make sure to use it as frequently as you need to. Alright, so now that we have the basics down on how to initiate a local repository and how we can add changes to that repository, let's get to the good stuff, which is using GitHub as your repository and pushing your code to GitHub. I'm sure that's what most people are interested in, so let's get to it. No pun intended. Alright, so I'm on github.com right now, and I have an account and I'm signed in, so the first thing I'm going to do is create a new repository, and then I'm going to push my code to that repository. So let's go ahead and click here and go new repository, and I'm going to call this one hello world, which matches our directory name, and I'll go a simple hello world app, and then create repository. And you can see that a repository is created, and here it gives you instructions on how to push your code to that repository. And you should notice that a lot of these are commands we have already done. So the first one is they create a file. The next thing is they initiate the repository. Then they add the file to the GitHub repository. They commit the change, and then they have two new commands here. So the first one is adding what we call a remote, and basically it's a remote repository where the code can be pushed to. So you can see that it gives the GitHub address, and it's naming this origin. The next thing to do is push your code to the origin, and the code branch that it's pushing is master. So let's go ahead and run these commands in the terminal. I'm going to pull this over, and I'm going to add the remote first. So I'll go get remote add, and I want to call it origin, and then let's copy and paste the GitHub address that I have. Now if you're following along, make sure to put your own GitHub repository. You will not have the rights to push to my repository. So I'll do that, and now I'm going to try to push this code. So let's have a look at what happens here. So I go get push -u origin master. And we can see that the code was successfully pushed. If I pull over my browser here and then refresh, we can see that the two files made it over there. Now, if you're running into issues, it's probably because you do not have your Git credentials set up. So I will show you how to set up your Git credentials so your Git client can push to GitHub. Alright, so the best way to set credentials for Git is to use the git config command. So the first thing you may want to do is use the command git config, and then you can go list, and this is going to list out the Git configuration. So we can see a lot of different information here, but what we're interested in right now is the username and user email. So if you want to set your username, go git config global, and this will set your username globally, so this will set it for all your Git projects, and then go user.name, and I'll say Brad. And actually my username is Brad Morg on Git, so I'll set that. And then you need to set your email address. So I'm going to rerun this command, but I'm going to go user email, and now I'm going to put in my email address that my GitHub is associated with. And that should be it. Let me go ahead and see what happens when I try to do a push now. So I'm going to clear the screen here, and I'm going to go get push origin and push my master branch to the origin location. So I'll put in my credentials here. And it says everything is up to date, so we are good to go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about here is branches. And branches are a really important concept to understand. I'm going to go over the theory first with a couple of screenshots, and then we're going to go ahead and get into the command line and do it ourselves. Branches are really easy to learn and adopt into your own workflow, but it's really important to have that base theory. Alright, so let's do a git log one line, and we can see two separate commits here. We can see the first one, which is our initial commit, and then we have a second commit, which we are currently pointed to. This is indicated by the head marker, and we can also see that this is the current master branch. So let's go ahead and draw this out and put it up on the screen here. So we first had the initial commit, and then we added a readme and did a second commit. Now let's go ahead and create a new branch called testing, and then we'll update our graphic here. So let's go ahead and create the new branch. I'll go git branch, and I'm going to call this one testing, and you're not going to get any output, but it does create the branch. Now let's rerun this last command, the git log -- one line, and we can see that this commit right here has two separate branches. We have the master branch and now a testing branch. And if you're wondering where your head is at, you can see it right here. It's pointing to the master branch, but I will show you how to change that. But let's go ahead and have a look at this in our graphic. So it looks pretty much the same, but we're going to add one change here, and that's to add the testing branch and point it to this commit. Now you may have noticed that the head is still pointing to the master branch. That's because we've only created the testing branch. We haven't checked it out yet. So let's go ahead and check it out. So we do that by going git checkout testing. And we can see that we have now checked out the testing branch. And if I refresh and check the logs here, we can see the head is pointed to testing now. Now let's go ahead and make a change and then commit it to our testing branch here. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'll just call it license.txt. And let's add this to the next commit. So I'll go add license.text. And I need to make sure to go git add. And then after that, I'm going to commit this change with the message added license file. And we can see that it was committed. And if we do a git status, we can see we're on the branch of testing and nothing left to commit. And if we do the git log one line, we can see that a new commit was made, and it's the testing branch, and the original master branch is over here. And if we ever wanted to switch between our testing branch and master branch, we could just do a git checkout master. And make sure you just complete the commands. It's checkout master. And if you look at the log, you see we're pointed to master. And if we switch over to testing, we can see that we can switch back and forth between these different branches. Another good way to see which branch you're on, or have a look at all the available branches, is just to type git branch, and the star indicates which branch you're on. So you can see you have the master branch and then a testing branch, and the head is indicated by the star. So let's go ahead and update our graphic now. So a new commit was made on the testing branch is pointed to it, and so is our head, and the master branch is still on the old commit. Now we have a lot of different options of how we could move forward here. We could continue to develop the testing branch, or we could go back to the master branch and make more branches, or just work on the master branch and make changes. But eventually what we want to do is merge every change together. So let's go ahead and merge our testing branch with our master branch. So I'm going to type git branch here. I can see I'm on the testing branch. Let's switch back to the master branch. So I'll go git checkout master. And I check my branch, I'm on the master, and now if I go git merge testing, we can see that it was merged, and if we go git branch, we can see that they still exist, but if we check our logs now, we can see that our master and our test branch are on the latest commit, so the master branch now has that license file that we added in the test branch. Now, one thing you might notice here is on the second commit, it's still labeled as origin/master. This means that this is the latest one pushed out to our remote repository. So if we want to move that up to our latest commit, then we need to do a git push origin master. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Alright, so my screen recording actually did not occur when I first ran this command, but basically all I did was a git push origin master. And then it went out and pushed out the latest commit to my remote location on GitHub. It says everything is up to date for me because I already ran this command, but if you're running it for the first time, you should see some output of it actually pushing out the latest commit. And then after you do that, you can do a git log, and you can see that the origin/master is now on the latest commit where our master branch is located. Alright, so the next topic we're going to cover is Git aliases, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's aliases within Git. So we can make our own commands, so we don't have to type out the full Git commands. So to get started, we're going to create one for the branch command. So as you know, if you type git branch, it gives you a list of the current branches within Git. But if you don't want to type out the entire command, you might want to just type git br. Now if you do that by default, it returns an error. But if we go ahead and add an alias, we can make this work. So this is within the Git configuration. So we're going to go git config, and then we're going to set it in our global configuration, and it's an alias, and we're going to call our alias command br, and then the alias command is branch. So now when we type git br, it gives us a list of branches. Now I have a few more aliases that I'm just going to copy here and paste. One is for checkout, another for commit, and then one for status. So I'll copy those in and paste it, and as you can see, I can do a git st, and it gives me the status. If I wanted to check out testing, I would go git co testing, and then git br to see that I'm on the testing branch. So it really makes you a lot more efficient when you start using aliases. You'll see which commands you want to turn into aliases. One that I suggest that you customize is using the git log command. So if you type git log, one line, that's quite a bit to type out. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this into an alias by doing git config global alias, and I'm going to call mine list. And then we're going to type in log, one line. And now when I do git list, it gives me a list of all the latest commits. This is a command I use all the time, and having this alias available to me will be very beneficial. So the last thing we're going to go over in this video is how to use Git tags. And basically what tags are used for is to give additional information on your commits. And what we usually use it for is for version information. You don't have to use it specifically for version information, it's just usually what we see tags used for. So to get started with tags, I'm going to first go git list, and this is just the git log command that I have an alias for, and we can see all my commits, and right now there isn't any tags associated. Now if I type git tag, I can see that I don't have any tags yet. So let's go ahead and add a tag to this commit right here. So I'm going to do that with the git tag command, and then I'm going to append a new tag, and I'm going to call this v1.00, and then I need to give a message, and I'll say version 1.00. Hit enter, and when I do a git list, I can see that this commit has a tag now, and if I go git tag, I can see that I have a version 1.00 tag. Now if I wanted to add tags to my previous commits, I can do that as well. So I'm going to rerun this command, but at the end, I'm going to put the hash here, and I'm going to change this to a different version number. So I'm going to go 0.99, and then this other one will be 98, and you can version it any way you want. So let's do this. Now when we go git tag, we can see that we have 3 separate tags. Now if we wanted to search for a specific tag, I could go git-l and put the tag number, and we can see that that command did not work. It's actually git show, so let's do that. Hit enter, and we found our commit on the version 9.9. So tags are very good for categorizing your commits and being able to search for it later. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. I just want to thank everyone for watching this far. Even if you just clicked around using the timestamps below, that's okay too. If you are interested in DevOps and learning more tools, I have plenty of videos on my YouTube channel, so please check that out. And if you have any questions or just want to chat with other DevOps engineers, come join our Discord, and you can basically ask anything or just leave a comment below. Thanks everyone, and I hope to catch you all in the next video.